Hey everyone, welcome back to some new malicious compliance stories. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Faster Isn't Always Better. This happened years ago. I was working for a retail chain doing overnight stocking. The store was brand new. We were paced on how fast we were going being compared to another store that was smaller and had been in function for 15 years. Stock these shelves. Here are 6 pallets. It should take you 15 minutes per pallet. If you can't fit all the products, send them back. Don't put them on the shelf at all. The area leads will figure it out. These pallets were 6 feet high with over 30 boxes. When we went through the computer training, it was advised to rotate stock. This is normal. Pull old product forward and new in the back. After the first month, the overnight manager was screaming at all of us, asking why it was taking us an hour or 2 per pallet. She came over and watched us and asked why we were rotating the food stock. We all said that's what the training said to do. She said that we don't have time for that and we are spending way too much time on each aisle. She also asked about why so much product was being sent back. We told her that she told us specifically if a new box won't fit, send the whole thing back. We would get to 15 or 16 items and not have room for the last one and send it back. Cue malicious compliance. One morning I'm taking pallets back and an area lead asks why her aisles are pretty empty. I tell her that the overnight manager told us if we can't fit it all to send it back. She's angry because now she has to stock it and do pricing adjustments. She sees a new label on a can of food and all the old ones behind and asks what the hell. I tell her that the overnight manager said we don't have time to rotate food. Her mouth is agape. She says okay and to have a good morning. That night one of the mid-shift managers and store manager is there to talk to us. A quick powwow. He says there's been an excess of food that's being thrown away because it's expiring due to lack of rotation. Everyone chimes in and says that we were told by the overnight manager to not rotate food. She looks like a deer in headlights. He ignores the comments and says for us to rotate stock. The night ensues and we get yelled at for taking too long. The store manager takes her to the side and reprimands her. She then moves everyone to different locations in the store and says we will be written up if we don't complete our tasks in time. I ended up quitting a week later, found out she was sent to another store. The kicker? My friend and I went in and grabbed a cartload of expired food and took it to the service desk. The manager that started taking over overnights was angry. They ended up having everyone come in and remove the expired products and rotate food. Long story short, faster isn't better. The next story is called Bean Counters. Once upon a time, several moons ago, pre-Uber and Lyft, but still this century, I worked for a company for which I ended up having to do a fair bit of travel over time. The original travel policy was pretty good and included paying for a professional car service to and from the airport. This was great because I was flying at odd hours to save the company money and more importantly increase face time at the customer side, which was very important. They were, shall we say, cranky. This wasn't even part of my job description. I wasn't supposed to be customer facing. But I volunteered one time to stop in on my way back from a week-long conference to see what was going on as the system engineer assigned to that customer had more important things to do. For months. I didn't know anything technical about the part that was breaking, but I was a manager. I could take notes and I was most importantly providing the warm body we care experience. Now the airport I had been using was Logan International. As with most all-time built-into-city airports, it's a pain to get in and out of, more than an hour each way. But airfare saved the company money and it was generally more likely to get direct flights while still meeting company requirements. That didn't come to play with this customer, they were just a hop, skip and a jump away. At some point during my tenure with the company, some bean counter decided we were paying too much for the car service. So we were no longer to be provided with it on trips lasting less than 4 days. I'm either going to the airport really early or really late, or coming back from the airport really early or really late, or both. The last thing I wanted was to be driving an hour plus in addition, and stressing driving into big city traffic. Now I happen to have a regional airport much closer to me, much easier to get in and out of. The airport was really close to the highway, the parking was very easy to get to, it was very easy to get from parking to the terminal, short ticket lines, short security line, short distance to the gate. And it was serviced by multiple airlines. I'm sure you all have them. The only downside is the tickets are generally over $100 more expensive than flying out of Logan. I'm sure you can see where I'm going here. We may have had a policy saying we couldn't use our car service, but there wasn't anything dictating which local airport we had to fly out of. The company ended up paying for my miles to and from the airport, plus $20 per day for parking in the parking garage. Why would I put my car in long-term parking for a trip lasting less than 4 days? And for my more expensive flights. I don't remember how much the car service cost was at the time, but I do remember having a discussion with our admin about the relative costs and figuring out that it wound up being a net loss for the company. The third story is called He Deserved It. I just went and picked up some food from a chain I worked at briefly years ago and was reminded of the story. I hated that job, but I still loved the food. I was working the drive-thru when a regular customer drove up. He was a catty and rude fellow who worked at the mall next door. So I had dealt with him enough to know that he was a jerk and to not even bother trying to give excellent customer service because he was just not a friendly person. He gave his order, which included a cup of water. We prepared his food, bagged it, and I started to pour his water. He got to the window and started fussing at me immediately because he needs a bigger water than that. That cup is tiny and useless and I have to have a bigger cup. Let's talk about our cups for a moment. I assume you all know that a fountain soda machine is extremely inexpensive to run and is highly profitable. It costs about 4 to 7 cents to fill a cup. Drinks cost money because the cup can cost more than the beverage itself. Our soda cups came in small, medium and large. Then we had a free water cup, which held about 1 cup, about 230 milliliters. It's small, I won't lie, but it was free and I get wanting to minimize food costs from a business perspective. I start explaining to him that the free water cups are this size, but he interrupts me before I can tell him that I can go ahead and give him water in one of the bigger cups. I did that on a fairly regular basis. He starts yelling at me about how stupid that is and how he will pay for a bigger cup. Malicious compliance time. But first, let's talk again about our cups. The small was big, medium was bigger, the large was a swimming pool. Seriously, it's a giant cup. It cost about $2.50. He didn't say what size he wanted, only that he would pay for a bigger cup. I grabbed the large cup, added the cost to his total and stared at him while the water laboriously trickled out of the spigot into his cup. The machine had very low water pressure without a carbonation, so it took a while to fill up. It was nearly full when I made a mistake. I swear I did not mean to do this. But I accidentally got the cup too close to the spigot next to the waters and a giant splash of dark colored cola ended up in that very nearly full water. I looked at him, said oops, poured it out and started over. The time dragged. Oh, how he glared at me. I had to try so hard not to laugh or look smug. It was awfully difficult. He was so rude and impatient, and if he hadn't have been, I would have just given him the damn water in a bigger cup. And all that time wouldn't have been wasted. Whatever, he deserved it. The last story is called Do You Really Want to Work Here? In my early 20s, I worked at a bar and a restaurant that were next door to each other, owned by the same people and attached through the kitchen. I took shifts at both. They were located in a pretty sketchy area of my city. The restaurant was a pretty cheap pizza place that catered to the neighborhood, and some of the customers could be pretty sketchy and some were cheap AF. There was one couple in particular that I couldn't stand. I called them Sonny and Cher, as they, comically, had similarities to their namesakes. They were the worst. Always ordered the special, demanded all of my attention, wanted endless refills, emptied the sugar, salt and pepper shakers into plastic baggies. You get the picture. All while pretending that we were great pals, knowing full well that they were going to leave me their standard tip of 1 nickel. Happened every time. The boss paid us under the table. At the end of the week, I would write down the hours I worked that week, multiply it by my hourly wage, pay myself from the till and leave the slip of paper with my calculations in the till. The boss decided to start closing the restaurant an hour earlier during the week. Obviously, people that had been used to the old hours would come in right at closing. This would cause me to stay later than my posted shift. After a few weeks, my boss noticed that I was paying myself after closing and asked why. I explained that I was having to stay past the closing time when I still had customers. He was not happy with my reason and told me in no uncertain terms that I was not to pay myself after closing time. No problem, but I don't work for free. So from then on, when people would come in towards the end of my shift, I would ask what they planned on ordering. If there was time for it to be prepared and eaten, I would serve them. If not, I politely explained that we were closing soon and could not accommodate them. My boss caught wind of this. He was not happy. He came into the restaurant during a really busy lunch shift and told me he needed to talk to me in the bar next door right now. He followed behind me through the kitchen, screaming at me in Greek the whole way. I do not speak Greek. When he got me out of earshot of the restaurant, he switched to English and went up one side of me and down the other. Told me I should better think about whether I wanted this job or not. Then told me to get back to work and left the premises. I ran back to a chaotic mess and I was mad. It really didn't take me long to think about it, maybe a minute. I realized that I really did not want this job. So I paid myself what I was owed and left a note informing him of my decision. I gathered my belongings, I told the cook I was quitting and walked out the door with a spring in my step. I was full of adrenaline and had no idea what to do next. There was a bus approaching, so I decided to get on. Guess who was on the bus? Sunny and Cher. They were confused to see me, as they knew I should still be on shift. I told them that I no longer worked there. They wanted to know why I had quit. Well, they asked, so I launched into a very detailed explanation of why I hated it. They featured heavily in the story. They were so embarrassed that I think they got off before their stop. It was one of the most satisfying experiences I have ever had. I heard later that the cook thought I was kidding, had run across the store for something and would be right back. Eventually, the customers went into the kitchen looking for me and he figured it out. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like, comment and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really helps in the algorithm. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.